Okay, we're going through Holy Grail of Wisdom Quotes by me, P. Rogers, alphabetical order. Here's Michael Torkel, and he said, why spend money, why waste money on psychotherapy when you can listen to the B minor Mass of Bach, okay? Ellis Paul Torrance, he's lived from 1915 to 2003, the father of creativity. He's a professor of psychology, and he developed what's called the Torrance Creativity Test. And he says, highly creative people do not need to waste time and energy trying to be well-rounded. Yeah, I've known a lot of geniuses and great people in their field, and they were intensely focused on their field. It's like that Ian Fleming quote. He said, they're maniacs for their field. Yeah, they have to be able to be better than anyone else in the world in their field, which means they have to be workaholics in their field. Okay, Torrance says, creativity is being able to generate novel and useful ideas. It's a person who's fluent in ideas in response to a stimulus in their field. They're flexible in seeing the different perspectives on a problem in their field. They can elaborate the reasons why something's likely to be beneficial or not. Basically, you got to be obsessed with your field so you know it backwards and forwards, and you can think about all the different angles on it. A highly creative person can generate ideas that are unlikely to be thought of by other persons. One of the biggest things in creativity is that a person's read in multiple fields, their own field as well as other fields, tangentially, peripherally related to theirs, so they can connect stuff from the different fields and put it all together. That's where a lot of unique ideas come from. He says high creativity requires at least an above average intelligence, something like an IQ of 120 to be highly creative. Now, 120 IQ on a bell curve, what is that? I haven't looked it up, but I would just guess that's probably something like about the top 10%, maybe even a little more than that, more like around 95%. Only 5% of the population, approximately, is over 120. But that itself, maybe it's 10%. That itself is not enough to generate creativity. Most people, like most doctors, they're not creative, like not at all. And when I say that is, they can do their job, follow the standard protocols, but I talk to doctors all day, every day. Most of them hardly ever say anything new, surprising, or interesting. Most of them don't read. I think if you're going to be creative, you have to be constantly reading, absorbing ideas and information, and then, you play it out in your mind. Does this relate to the other things I'm thinking about or not? And that's why I think IQ is a bell curve, meaning there's a normal distribution, a Gaussian distribution of ability to solve random problems in an academic sense. That's IQ. But to be creative is more like a Latka curve. A Latka curve means it requires multiple skills and to be high level at multiple things. I'm not talking about being creative enough to decorate your bathroom. I'm talking about being creative to come up with unique, high-level, advanced academic ideas. And a Latka curve means you're articulate, you're motivated, you've read extensively, you've worked in the field a lot, you've got the experience, you've completed all the prerequisites, and you've learned all the advanced stuff, and now you're thinking about different ways to solve the problem. You've read the relevant literature in connected or associated fields. And then it also takes some courage, because just as soon as you have a new idea, you're a minority of one. And I said this before too, I think men are much more idiosyncratic than women are. I've seen this because I know 3 lady doctors that were all second in their class. I have extensive experience with 3 of them. Okay, one of them was my girlfriend for many years, okay? And she had no interest in creativity, none. She said, I want to get a nice house in a nice neighborhood. I'm not good at business or anything else, so I know I can make money in medicine. I'm like, okay, fine. And she was real smart and hardworking and had a great memory, but she wasn't creative. Then I knew another one, second in her class, and she had the attitude, just want to have a nice life. And like I said, we did residency together. I would be like, I almost felt insulted. I was at Northwestern because my mother was sick with cancer. I stayed at Northwestern, but I belonged at Harvard, and I knew it, and I was sort of annoyed with Northwestern. I thought it was sort of like baby talk, kindergarten, lazy. Okay, so when I would present in front of the attendings and the residents, to me it was nothing. I just said, give me another presentation. I want to show what I can do. Whereas she'd be like, oh my God, a presentation. I got to take beta blockers. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? This is a joke, okay? Then I knew another one. And she just, wanted to have a good job in the suburbs, make money, and, she's real bright, but none of them had any motivation. I know lots of guys that are like that. I knew lots of guys at Harvard, they never once said anything interesting. They just, wanted to do their job, be competent, make their money, get on with their life. Okay, next thing from Paul Torrance. Creativity is the process of sensing problems or gaps in information, then identifying the difficulties and seeking solutions through trial and error or forming a hypothesis. Yeah, so I think when you're creative in a field, you take everything personally. And because you take it personally, you're emotionally invested in the field. Like when I was a young guy and I wanted to be, I thought I was going to be a biologist instead of being a doctor because I had this attitude. At Stanford, the attitude is the biologists are great scientists and doctors are scumbag sellouts. So my dad was a doctor. I'm like, I'm going to be a scientist. I'm going to be better than my dad. So like I go to the Palo Alto Baylands to go bird watching and I ask them for a field guide. They don't have a field guide. And I was like, took it like, is it a personal affront? What do you mean you don't have a field guide? So despite being super busy, I wrote one for them. That's because I was personally invested. And same thing with this sort of nutrition field. I was afraid I was going to get diabetes and be sick. My parents were sick, so I was highly motivated to learn all this stuff. Okay, I didn't learn any of it in medical school. All right, one of the most powerful wellsprings of creative energy, outstanding accomplishment, and self-fulfillment seems to be falling in love with something. Like Goethe said, in order to learn a complex task, a man must love it. So initially it's fun to learn anything, but then you hit the long, tedious grind of becoming a high-level expert, and that can go on for a decade, and that's not always fun. Okay, Torrance says, your dreams, your image of the future, creativity is a distinctive trait of human excellence in all domains of behavior. One's self-image and the image of the future have a great deal to do with what a person is motivated to do and able to do, as well as the extent to which he's able to change his behavior. The other thing I've seen when you have a good coach, and it could be for a wrestling team or the cross-country team or the debate team, the volleyball team, whatever, it inspires the athletes to think they could win the championship. So you get all kinds of guys that do pretty well with good coaching, whereas if they had gone to a regular school, they would have been pretty average, but they're so pumped up at a great school that they become really good. So it helps having a good teacher, a good coach, an inspiring role model. Paul Torrance continues, finding a good teacher or mentor helps a person become more creative. And Torrance continues, since I reached the conclusion that the essence of being a creative person is being in love with what one is doing, I've had a growing awareness that this characteristic makes possible all the other personality characteristics of the creative person. Independence of thought and judgment, honesty, perseverance, curiosity, willingness to take risks, and the like. Yeah, so when you get it, you feel it in your heart. This is the real freaking deal. This is what I should be doing with my life. You get all this energy. That's what's one of the great things about it. And then when you got all that energy because you like it, you're doing it because you think it's right and it's fun, you'll outperform other people because you're so motivated. That's how I got good at all this nutrition and health and toxicology stuff. It's like, I got to learn this. This is the most important thing for health. So that's where that energy comes from. And it's good to have that energy. It makes it more fun. Anyways, that's what I got for Torrance. I hope you found that helpful. Do I got one more quote? I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. Okay, hope you found that helpful.